Hey, Joe Howard, how's it going, man?
I'm doing well, Brian. How are you doing, man?
Doing good. Yeah, great to connect with you again. We've kind of known each other for several years here, and
That's right.
you reached out to me a few weeks ago, and all of a sudden you're working on a new startup. I remember you sort of you still run WP, or you don't run WP Buffs, but like you've handed over the CEO role, but you still own it. Is that right?
That's right. The short story is I'm still the majority owner of the business, but I've stepped out of the day to day. Nick, originally hired as a support person, and just kind of was continually too good at his job. Eventually became COO, and now is CEO of the company. So yeah, I've stepped out of day to day stuff, and yeah, working on new projects.
That's awesome. I remember when you did that, like a year or two ago, and I thought that you were just sort of like off, like traveling, vacationing since then, and then all of a sudden you show up in my DMs with this new thing, Driftly.
Kind of how it is with startups. I kind of was, not working too much the past 6 or 8 months or so. My family's living in Mexico and a little bit here in Florida. That's where I am now. In a few couple weeks, actually, now we're going to be back home in DC, DC area.
Very
But
cool.
yeah, I did take some time off, and I wanted to kind of organically let what happens happen, and yeah, I was relaxing. I was reading a lot of science fiction. I was kind of,
Wow.
taking nice walks on the beach, and it was a great time to be able to spend more time with my family, with my wife, with my son. Son. I got a 2.5-year-old now, uh, and so it was a cool time to take like a mini hiatus from business world, but I started to get that itch again, and yeah, I ended up finding a new project. And so I think a lot of people are saying the same thing as you, like, okay, he's like back, like, okay, new project, like, what is this? Like, this is it, like, kind of all happened, over a couple week period, but that's kind of
That's
how
how
I
it
am,
happens. I
yeah.
think in our, we're gonna do another segment here. I definitely want to hear more about this hiatus because I can't relate to that at all. But yeah, we're gonna talk about like being a dad and the hiatus stuff. We'll get into that in the other one. But here, since I came across Driftly, talking to you about it, it looks really cool. But what's interesting to me, what I would really like to focus on here is, your role. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're sort of like the marketing co-founder, like the marketing focused person, and your co-founder is the technical person. Is that right?
That's right. That's the easy way to put it. That's usually how I say it. It's like technical and non-technical,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I
Obviously, not
started.
just marketing. I'm sure you're both
So
wearing tons of
exactly,
hats. But
there are these gray areas in business that you've run SaaS companies, you've run productized services before. Is like there's technical, there's like building the thing, and then there's marketing and maybe sales if you need that. That's like a non-technical role. But then there's also like customer support, and then there's like customer success, and product, UI, UX. Like there's a lot of things that are like, maybe could go under technical co-founder if they have that skill set. Maybe it could go under the non-technical co-founder if they have that skill set. So there are some things that are like support. Okay, Jacob, you can work on support. Since you're working on the product, like you're probably the best person to like you can just tell people exactly what they need to hear, and it'd be cool for them to hear from the person who's building it for support. And then there's things like documentation. It's like,
yeah,
well, maybe we should tag team that because the technical aspects of things, but like my role is more marketing and like the website copy. So like documentation is also kind of copy. So it's like I want to be able to write things that are going to be easily digestible for the end user. You might get a little technical with it, so maybe we can tag team that and like kind of both work a little bit on that. So there are certain areas that are like could be enveloped by both, but we're kind of figuring that out as we go along. That's a good thing about working with Jacob. We're on the same page about like we'll figure things out as they come, and we don't
yeah.
have everything figured out today, and we can make decisions as they come, and that's cool.
That's super cool. I'm always like jealous of folks who have a co-founder. I've been
Yeah, you're
you know
solo founder on certain
solo on
things,
all
right?
my stuff, and it's wearing all the hats, and it is interesting how like there are areas that probably can and should fall under both purview, right? Like so, I think like talking to
Mm.
customers, like yeah, somebody sort of needs to take care of the support tickets and get those resolved, but that's also like, I mean, talking to customers. If you're focused on marketing and copy, you need
Totally.
to understand what they're saying and what they care about.
Yeah, we're like
and all that.
CCing each other on like every email we send, just so that we're both like involved in every conversation. Because
Yeah.
you're totally right, especially at the early stages of a company. I'm sure you either are still experiencing this with Zip Message, but definitely in the early days that it was like, I don't exactly know what Zip Message is yet. Like I have this idea of what I want it to be, but like if like 10 customers come back and they're like, oh, it would be really awesome if like it actually did this thing that it doesn't do now. Like,
yeah,
well,
I mean, we're definitely still in that. Definitely
yeah,
still
kind of
in
always
that
in it,
game
right?
right now, where it's like we're about a year into having customers, and it's still like evolving into different use cases and feature requests and types of customers who are coming through. So that's actually a really good segue into the question I want to get into with you here. So, I mean, Driftly, for those who don't know, okay, so I'll give you like my understanding of it.
That'd be awesome. Let's do like a whole like you're a potential customer. Like tell me what you think it is. So and I'll jump off this episode and make some copy adjustments.
Well, it's clearly like an onboarding tool. It appears to be aimed at SaaS products, or at least to me, that's where it would make sense. Like a SaaS product could like plug this in, and it would take care of like the tour and pointing new users and getting them to that, aha moment. Actually, right in your H1, you nudge users toward that wow moment. So that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I like in Zip Message, we did build it custom. Actually, just this week, I redesigned and reworked our onboarding flow for like the third or fourth time. It's, I think it's a super important piece of the puzzle. And, it's also like, I mean, for me, I'm technical and I design the product, and then I have my developers who help push on features. Mm-hmm. But the thing like onboarding requires some dev work, but like I'm able to build it. That's sort of like a luxury that I have that a lot of teams don't have, because like a lot of teams need to be pushing on the bigger features, but they don't want to spend their developers hours on these like onboarding tweaks or this or that. So I could work on these like technical marketing stuff.
Technical person's role. Sometimes like we found like actually like ideal customers for us are kind of like heads of product and like customer success folks, and even support folks who want like less support tickets about their complex like dashboards, and that's what product tours can do. I'd be interested to actually ask you more about the ones you've built into Zip Message yourself, because so Driftly, product tours, it helps with onboarding, it helps with feature adoption. The idea is to help turn like average users into power users, which increases retention, which increases feature and product adoption, increases lifetime value, like all those good things. I'd be interested to hear in Zip Message, you said it's like your third or fourth time doing it, building it internally. How are you like measuring the success of like the little tours you're giving to folks?
Well, I'm just a big believer in reworking things early and often in a SaaS product. Like I said, Zip Message is I've been building it for about a year and a half, have had customers for about a year, and I just reworked the marketing site as well. And I just think like as you learn more, which happens really rapidly during the first year, things need to change really rapidly, right? So everything. So this most recent iteration was, the way that I think about making changes like this is it's usually to solve a specific problem. So right now, I wanted to update it so that I'm getting data on the use cases, on like somebody's intended use case for Zip Message, because that's sort of a big challenge that I have with it. I mean, you're more focused on like SaaS and software, and then you can get into like product managers and stuff like that. With Zip Message, it's more wide open.
Sure
we get SaaS teams. We get SaaS teams. We get agencies. We get coaches. We get podcasters.
Like everybody needs that,
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's funny. We I added a thing in the onboarding flow that says like, what do you intend to use Zip Message for? It's got like 8 choices.
Yeah.
And check all the ones that apply, and then there's one other with a free form entry.
Yep.
And I was like, I thought I was like all smart, like, oh, I'm gonna get all this like data, and 1 or 2 of these is gonna turn into like the path. Yeah. Of course, like every sign up that came in this week, they each check like 4 or 5 boxes. It's like, great. Yeah. That's not helpful.
I'm sure your percentages like split across like
Absolutely. Yeah.
every one of those. Yeah. That's a challenge. I mean, that's like, part of like finding your ideal customer. Like there's so many pieces, right, to like start up and like getting it right and like finding your ideal customer market. Like sometimes it's easy depending on a lot of different things, but sometimes it's hard. Like, and every startup's going to have those things that like really take a long time to figure out.
I mean,
and maybe
that
look
was
different early than later on.
totally. I mean, that was one of the things, was just the ability to gather some data on users as they're coming into the app. I actually did that very early on in Zip Message, and then I changed. So like going from like V1 to V2 of the onboarding, I removed that sort of customer research piece. And the goal there was to just flow them right into the app quicker and skip the questions. And I had that for about 6 months, and then I just went back to at least just ask them, what do you intend to do with it? That's all I want to know. And then, but the other piece that I'm trying to optimize for right now is also like getting to that activation. So I am measuring how many new users come into the app and then actually record their first message in Zip Message.
Yeah.
Like we drop them right into their first message, but like a lot of people just don't create one. So
this
it
is
takes
like
them
feature adoption journey, but for you, it's kind of product adoption because like your feature, like that is the big feature.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not going to create a message, then you're not going to share it with someone, and then you're not going to get the value of having your first async conversation. So, I'm looking at that number, and I mean, obviously most people do go ahead with that, but there's a larger chunk than I would like to see who just somehow sign up and then I don't know if it's like they're not ready to create their first message, but like, I don't know.
I think, a lot of it's really interesting, this free trial thing, because I've never done free trials before. I actually tried free trials with WP Buffs, but it was a total disaster because I learned you shouldn't do free trials with a service. Like you're providing a service, people need to pay for it. Like, okay, yes, get that. But with the SaaS, with a tech company, it's different. The margins are higher. You can give people free access. It doesn't cost you anything more except a couple more cents of server costs. But the free trial thing is interesting because you want to build for your paying customers, right? Like especially for an indie company, like the people who are paying are the people who you want to like build for. But it's when you're starting off, you get so many free trials that you're kind of in this awkward spot of like, well, I want to do something to help like activate more free trial users into paying users. But who are my free trial users? That's a big question, because like, are your free trial users you're building for the people who are going to churn anyway and not going to upgrade anyway? Because if you build for those people, then you're not really like moving forward at all. And I think about that a lot in terms of like who are our free trials. I like saw a free trial come in the other day, and I was like, oh, awesome, free trial. Early stages, like free trial started today. Like, let's go. It was like someone who I knew was just trying it out but wasn't going to pay for it. So that's just like, it was like a friend of mine. It's like, I'll try it out, but they're not like my target customer. They just like wanted to sign up because they talked to me
that's
about
a tough thing early on for sure. I see a lot of that too. So I'm curious, like with that, like even within SaaS companies, that's still a wide net of customers. So like, are you starting to learn like who are the best fits for Driftly?
We're starting to. We're still early on, so it's still a learning process. But we have an idea of the kind of customers we want to go after. And it kind of started off as like indie hacker, indie maker, like small companies, because there are other companies
like take care of this piece so that you can build other features, right?
Yes, exactly. There are other companies that do what we do. Some of them are like huge, big funded companies. Like Intercom has product tours. They're like $400 million funded company, right? But they're not really a direct competitor. Like a lot of our funded companies are going more after enterprise level customers. Intercom is kind of like the giant who kind of is trying to like do it all. But so we thought like there's some people like down in mid-market that need a tool like this, but who aren't going to pay 200, don't want to pay $200 a month for it. Like, we have a $25 a month plan now, I think, and also a $99 a year plan. So it's like, those are like probably the main two we're pushing right now. We have an enterprise plan, but that's a little bit, at least for right now, it's more like have a super high priced item so that people think the other ones are cheaper by comparison,
Right.
We started there, and we kind of have shifted a little bit more into like mid market companies, because we found some people like you are early and they just want to like build it themselves.
Yeah.
But that's like actually one of the reasons why like Jacob, my co-founder, has a lot of things he wants to build to make it so that people don't have to build it themselves, or like almost ask the question like, why would I build it myself instead of using this tool? It's going to take a little while to get there, but like that's the idea. So we have, some sub features like, analytics, so you can see how well your tours and product tours are doing and your hotspots. We're making it customizable enough to look native within your app. We have teams so that if you have a bigger team, you can get 3 people in there. We have targeting and segmentation, so you can say, I want to show this tour to new users, and then as soon as someone becomes a paying user, they get this like more advanced tour, however you want to target people.
Yeah, I mean,
so
like the nice thing
as well to target those folks.
The thing that does seem attractive about it, like as someone who does design and build it myself, that what seems attractive is like the ability to rapidly test different options. Like if we onboard people this way and go through this flow, let's change that up and try option B, and just rapidly go between those without having to like rework the code and redeploy and all that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm actually
cool.
Honestly getting good feedback from this conversation just for like myself selfishly, but the like fast testing I think is a cool idea. I've thought of Driftly as something that could actually, like, you could implement product tours, and the analytics behind it could actually tell you not only like how far people get in their tours, but like where people get stuck in your software. So you could say like this tour, like on step 3, like people just, there's like a 50% drop off here. Like that probably means that the UI or UX of that area in your app is like something might be off there. Try to make that easier so you can improve the feature adoption almost like regardless of the tour. Like I still think the tour is going to be really helpful, but maybe that could influence like actually making the app better. And the other thing you said about like asking an initial question, we have the targeting and segmentation, so that's nice to be able to do that. But I like the idea of being able to target and segment based on information given by the user, which is kind of a little bit more into like the area of like right message. I'm sure you know right message.
I used to,
interesting idea too.
When I had the V1 version of it, it was much more freeform. I was asking users like open questions like, how did you hear about it and what are you trying to do with it? Like type in your answer into this box. And that wasn't necessarily to like start segmenting. It was just like, I want to hear the words from their mouth, like, or from their typing, right? Just to see what they're using so I could start to write better copy on the website. Now the new version is more of a multiple choice plus an other option that they can type into.
It kind of depends on the kind of data you want to get out, because you're going to get more answers with just to choose, one thing, a few less with like choose multiple things, and then a few less with give me the free flowing type your answer. But the kind of data you're going to get back, do you want to get do copy for your website? Well, you want to hear exactly what people are saying. So even if you get 5 instead of 20 answers, that's still better for you. But if you want just like to know the percentages of like 50% of people answered this, like that's probably going to suggest us, multiple choice or single choice.
I mean, the other thing I'm starting to do a lot more of now is actually sending zip messages to the new users and getting into direct conversations from there.
That's the easiest way to honestly like vet people to see if they're like potential customers. Like, do you never reply? Well, you're probably not going to
totally.
Message, so like, why should I? So that's probably not worth continuing to have the conversation. Like, cool.
Yeah.
Maybe another.
I mean
but if they're enjoying it, then hey, you should be a customer.
Yeah, totally. I mean, actually, like maybe it's another idea for your product if you don't have something like this already, is to see, how far do they make it through the onboarding flow, or how active. Like I could see. So when I get a notification when someone signs up for Zip Message, I could see, have they actually created their first message yet or not? And if they did, that's a higher indication that like they're more engaged. And if I do personally reach out to them, I could probably take them even further.
How do you see if they've created a Zip message or not? Or are you just like checking your database stuff?
Yeah, from the database. So I set it up so that like, actually what I did was I'm delaying the notification to myself about 10 minutes after they sign up. So that they have like 10 minutes to get in there and create their first message. And if they don't,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I just wrote a big. We're starting to, we've chosen some marketing channels to take a bet on for Driftly, and
Yeah, that's what I really want to get into
months.
here.
Yeah, sure. I was just gonna say, because you're talking about feature adoption stuff. I just wrote this big like blog post about feature adoption, and one on feature adoption, one on product adoption in general. So I was actually just thinking about. I've been having a lot of these ideas flowing through my head around like how do you, not just using Driftly to do it, but like in general, how, like, what are the things you need to know, and not just best practices, but things you need to test, things you need to experiment with, things you need to be thinking. Like and I was doing the skyscraper approach, so I was looking at all the other content out there. I was like, oh my god, there's so much out there. But
all right,
yeah, a lot of
dude, this is what I've been seeing from you on Twitter in the last few weeks, and this is what I really want to dig into. Like,
okay.
Like, I feel like I just completely like overthink stuff and try to get too strategic and game plan this and game plan that. And then I see you on Twitter, like you ask like 10 people for their input on some question, and then you turn it into like a 5,000 word blog post that features all these people, and it gets all these like retweets and shares. And it's like, what just happened here? Like, you just like generated all this activity, and you're just like kind of coming out of the gate with this new product and just, firing on all cylinders. I love it. I mean, how do you think about, obviously you've been through the process of like starting and building and growing a company before with WP Buffs, and I'm sure you've done all sorts of like marketing strategies at different stages of that business. Now you're sort of like back at square one. How do you think about like strategically, what are we doing about growing traffic and getting more users into the top of our funnel? Right now, are you just sort of like throwing a lot of stuff out there just to generate activity, or how are you thinking about this?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you honestly, this is my second. I've done startups before. I did WP Buffs, but none of them, they were the stepping stones into the first success. And now I would really consider like Driftly the second real startup I'm working on. And you would think I would feel so confident and like, oh, I just had a good success, like I could do this. And you know what? I go back and you start at square one, and you really feel like you're on square one. At least I do. I'm on Twitter.
100%
I feel intimidated by a lot of other people who are like also beginners, like probably more so beginners than me, but they're like at 10,000 MRR. And I'm like, that's awesome, because that's the milestone I say, you can be self-sufficient. But I'm like, we're at $100 MRR, what am I doing, So that comes back pretty quickly.
SaaS is just so much harder in general. Like,
so far it is harder, and the experience is helpful. I will tell you that I think I'm more confident in not knowing everything. And maybe it's even I'm more confident in like looking like a fool, or like I put a tweet out the other day that was like, because at WP Buffs, like our biggest driver was SEO. Like we got to like 100,000 monthly unique visitors, like 150, like fairly quickly. And it was like crushing it, and like generated a lot of business for us. I just put a tweet out like 2 or 3 weeks ago that was like indexed, and I got 2 clicks in Google Search Console, So like talk about starting from the beginning. But like,
yeah,
I think I'm just more confident in like, a lot.
Well,
it
definitely helps
know
that
what they're doing, and there aren't really rules. Like you just kind of like go and figure it out, and I can use some of my experience to like help me maybe like peek around corners and know what's coming. But a lot of it's just like it's all kind of work and figuring it out. So I think I'm just a little more confident in that.
Totally. It does help, I think, that you have that experience of having built a business where you did use SEO and content to grow to 100K visits a month, right?
Yeah.
So you've seen what it looks like when that strategy is all built out and mature and really driving a lot of activity. So in that sense, I'd imagine like you know what it looked like to go from 0 to that. I'm sure it took a long time, but like, are there, so like tactically, are there things that you're looking to just like put into place, or just get the engine turning to get that like SEO content flywheel going? Like what are like the very first, aside from like just, the first blog post or two, are you starting with like keyword research? Are you thinking about like long form versus many short form articles? Or are you thinking about like buyer intent articles versus like how are you thinking about all that stuff?
Yeah. There's like a million
So
questions
much.
in there. No, and which is good. Like this is the thing about like marketing. It's all intertwined, right? So like one question is like five questions, but let me just kind of like walk through a little bit of like my mentality of like starting to do SEO. I do build. Jacob and I are both doing this kind of like build in public thing, where we're just kind of like sharing on Twitter the stuff we're doing. You're one of my motivators in that, because I thought what you were doing was so cool. I was like, it's nice to like share little nuggets along the way, not only for other people, but it's nice to
You
have
know
a little
what?
diary for myself to do it.
I feel like some people look at that like building in public thing like it's a tactic, like we're doing it
Yeah.
like yes, of course I wanted to drive activity and traffic to my website, but
Yeah.
like I do it for fun because I want to share stuff because I want to get feedback from especially from friends who I trust.
And feedback accelerates the growth. So
And as
can
a
be both.
consumer, like I love seeing what people are working on. I
Totally.
just show me what you're working on. I think that's the most
Yeah.
interesting
And it
thing.
sparks your own ideas. Yeah, we
Yeah.
could talk. Maybe we should do a third episode on building public. That's a whole other thing. But
Totally.
okay, so like SEO, I'm actually doing it a little bit differently this time. I'm gonna be honest. The content, we have 4 blog posts up on the Driftly blog, and they're probably the blog posts I'm the most proud of that I've ever written. I think the WordPress specific content I wrote, I started not writing pretty quickly. Like we hired writers and had a content team, but a lot of
Back when
WordPress
you were on
content is kind
WP
of
Buffs.
like, yeah, a lot of WordPress content is like, it's so easy to like shift into like listicles and like the 50 best themes for speed, and it's like that can be helpful for sure, but like then you see someone else writes one that's 51 and they have 51, they're like, I'm gonna do 52 just to like, oh, and it's just kind of like, is this really helpful for like the end user? Like maybe fractionally, but like let's be honest, we're just trying to get that #1 spot in Google. So the content I've written now, I think, is just, I've taken a much more, I think, serious approach to like really that, I talked about a little bit about this, but this skyscraper approach. People may know it from like Backlink back in the day. Still works pretty well, apparently. Well, TBD, because I'm not ranking too high yet. But, just literally it's, looking at all the other content out there and building your own skyscraper. That's like the best piece of content, and learning along the way.
Yeah.
While
But
writing that
it
content.
also sounds like you're going after something a little bit more than just purely search. And it has to be, just higher value, higher, like, just more interesting, more share worthy on Twitter and stuff, like, and especially if you're talking to SaaS founders or SaaS people who work in SaaS, they're much more savvy. Like they know
So
what
savvy.
a listicle
Totally.
looks like, and they know not to click on
WordPress
it.
beginner user
right?
is, a little bit less mature in their business sense, and I don't know, but exactly what you're saying. The the SaaS folks know what's up, right? They see a listicle, right? They see a poorly written article, they're clicking the back button really fast, So, the things I'm focused on much more this time is that like really, really high quality of content, all encompassing, but also like concise. Not long for length's sake, but just like as comprehensive as possible, but getting directly as possible to.
That's a really
answer
interesting
that
point,
question.
right? Because like
Yeah.
the skyscraper thing, of course, is like write 10,000 words and it'll do well in Google. But like when I land on one of those from a Google search or something like that, like just the length alone makes me click the back button because I'm just like, I can't get it. This is too much. And
so the way that I try to battle this, because honestly, like that long content, Google does love that long content, So, but you have to find a way not only to like have Google like it, but more importantly, to have a user like you to come and read it. So what I try to do for users like you is not only organize it really well with my H1, H2, H3, which also helps you like jump into the auto answer that Google does,
right,
but
right.
also make really nice table of contents for each piece with and at the end of each of those sections you put a back to top button. So I'm really trying to make it like a modular sort of like jump up, down, jump up. I try to bold the in the table of contents like the main pieces. So like here are the main 3 pieces, here's where you go for like the you were looking for like ways to drive product adoption. Like here's some background, the first 3 sections, but these 3 are like
jump
these are
straight to
bolded,
it.
so you can jump right to those. Yeah, so that people can, I think some people are hesitant to do that because they're like, I want more like time on page, but like that's so stupid. Like that's not. You want to just be as helpful as possible to like every user. Quickly, just before I lose my train of thought, the high quality content is one thing I'm focusing on, and performance is something
Like
I'm
speed,
focusing
you
on
mean?
like big time. Yeah, just the speed of the website. If you go to the blog, it's like the most simple blog you've ever seen. There's maybe each blog post has like 4 or 5 images, all WebP formatted, all as small as possible. There's some super small images for like tweets that I like included in there that are not embedded. I put the text in there to make it load faster. So I'm testing this theory that's like, if I can get a few links to my content and I can write really, really good content, I think it's pretty good content. I'll continue to go back and edit and make it better over time. And it's just high performance. It's just like loads really fast. All 4 of my pieces right now, I think, are like 99 in Google page speed,
Nice.
Web Core Vitals. So
Yeah, that's something I gotta
well,
get more into. Is like really analyzing that.
Yeah. That's a
mean,
big thing now, especially on
for
mobile.
sure. Yeah, for sure. I want to ask you also about like planning out each topic that you're going to tackle, and
Ooh, yeah.
and then sort of like building up the list of like priorities, or like work. So like I'm starting to work with some SEO folks right now to get going on like a content strategy for Zip Message, and the way that I think about it, I mean, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Is like, I'm going to have somebody plus myself like working on the keyword research and basically building up a long list of topics, kind of sorted by like best opportunities and what makes the most sense for our business. And then I would hand those to a writer to develop content. And, I'll be sort of giving input on both ends. And we would do a bit of link building as well. But like, like I imagine like just building up a queue of topics that are well researched in terms of like search opportunity and meaning for the business.
Yeah.
Like, is that how you're thinking about it?
I think this is like the big thing that it's the most overlooked thing when people are doing keyword research, because most people are like search volume and, difficulty to rank.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have something that's like has a good ratio of that, like a high, what is it? A
High volume
to difficulty
low
ratio.
difficulty. Yeah.
That's right. Then you say, I want to go for it. But you may forget, like, what's the intent of that search and who is making that search. So is the intent of that search to buy? Is the intent of that search to gather more information? Buying is obviously the best, but gathering information is good too. Who is that? Who's making that search? I just wrote a blog post for Driftly. One of my blog posts is actually not, it's not targeted very well. And the reason I ended up writing it is because I wanted to get my juices flowing. I wanted to get things rolling, and it was honestly something I just wanted to write about. I thought it was a good topic that would, keep me learning, and you got to start somewhere. And it was like how to generate SaaS ideas for real businesses. And who's a Driftly customer? Is it someone who's starting a SaaS company? Probably not. Probably most people doing those searches are like first-time SaaS people. If you're a second-time SaaS person, like Brian, I wouldn't think of you as someone who would Google that. Like, you have your community, you have Twitter followers, you have like other ways besides.
But I might land on
basic.
it and start to get some shiny object ideas.
Who
I don't know.
knows? Who knows? That's right. So maybe some second-time founders, but is that gonna like target our like core customer? Probably not. But you're right. That would be a big thing I would focus on. Is just like what's available to rank on, what's the low-hanging fruit, those long tails you were talking about, and also how can you focus on people who are going to have intent, the kind of people who are not just going to do a free trial of Zip Message, but the people who are eventually going to become paid users.
Right.
The one last thing I'd say is just that there's a lot of new searches happening every day, right? Like 30% of searches done every day are like completely new searches.
Yeah,
but
when it comes to volume, like how much does that actually matter?
Yeah, a lot of people do SEO, right? So you're never going to find like the perfect like 50 keywords to write 50 blog posts on and like match. Like you're going to be like me. You're going to write some aren't focused as well on the buyer. You're going to write some
Mm-hmm.
that have, I've written one of my blog posts I wrote, the volume I found was like under 10 searches a month. And I wrote like 4,000 words for it,
Yeah.
and that's okay. You have to be okay with like SEO is going to take a little bit of time to get going, and you're going to have to like build into those 40, 50 searches a month, and eventually 100. But once you get to like 100, like you're gonna have, that's difficult to compete in almost no matter your industry. Like,
I mean, that's
top
the other.
three are going to be high domain authority sites usually. So
That's the other thing that I'm seeing. I was just recently, kind of. I feel like I've researched how to do SEO content like so many times in my career, and every single time I feel like I'm learning it for the first time.
Absolutely. And every like 5 years, Google's doing something different. So it's
true.
really like when I was doing SEO for WP Buffs, like it was actually like pretty easy to get going. Like I'm thinking back and I'm like. I wasn't like pulling my hair out. I don't have any hair to pull out, but I wasn't like, going crazy over it. Now it's like, I mean, people have seen Google has changed a lot, right? They're driving a lot more traffic to their ads, right? They're like squeezing out their auto answers to most, I think now the majority of searches actually don't get a click.
Yeah.
Which is kind of scary, right? Like SEO's not dead, but it's changing. It's changing.
And plus,
so
I mean, the whole top half of the page is ads too.
It's ads or auto answers or Google Places if you're searching for something something like that's going to come up. It's what's it called? The super fast. Pages.
The AMP thing. The
AMP, yeah. The AMP pages. If you're like a news organization, not very good for people like us who are trying to like convert email addresses or new customers, but for like a news, you need to have the AMP stuff because all news is coming in through that. So
one thing I noticed as I'm trying to learn more, like I'm going through the videos from like Ahrefs, which are really great. There's a lot of good information out there.
Great company.
They always use the case study of like, oh, let's say you're a flower shop and you're trying to sell to consumers, and like search for keywords that have 1,000 plus, 5,000 plus search volume, right?
Yeah,
and in the world of B2B SaaS, that doesn't exist. And
right. That's a flower shop thing where you could have a Google. So a flower shop is a local company, most of them. Right?
Or even if it's not local, right? Like even if you're like an e-commerce brand selling shoes or something like that, or like a weight loss program or like there's gonna be thousands and thousands of search volume when you look at tools like Ahrefs and stuff like that.
And that's like in the US, and you're like, well, especially if you're local. It's like you need to have your local search volume as well, and then you need your Google Places with lots of reviews there. That's what's going to be the most helpful. Like,
but I mean,
SEO
like
for blog posts is not helpful.
Yeah. It took me like several rounds of watching the same videos over and over to start to realize like, you know what, in B2B, it's a different game. Like, and especially B2B SaaS, right? Like it is lower volume. You do have to focus more on the intent. And I think you're right, like that there are definitely searches happening that will not show up in the search, in like the search volume results in these tools, right?
And
like
if you're trying to rank for something like that blog post I wrote that's under 10 searches for volume, that was for that specific keyword. There are probably like 10 or 20 other searches that are like variations or plurals or something kind of similar that's actually that 10 you're seeing, like multiply that by the 20 different variations or keywords, you're talking about under 200. So, and if you're a small company, 200 clicks doesn't sound like a lot, and in the grand scheme of things it's not a lot, but it's way more than 0 or 1 or 2, and that can, if you have even a small conversion funnel going, 5 out of those 200 a month join, that's like 5 new customers every month. Like that is the starting of a business growing. And so SEO, it seems like everyone's competing, but there's so many new searches done all the time that if you just be patient, go after that long tail, you search for those smaller keywords, and you just write the best content you possibly can, make your website fast. You can, like, if you commit yourself for 6 months, like, I don't guarantee you'll find customers because there's a lot more to it, but like you will, in 6 months, you'll be on your way to like figuring it out. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we talked a lot about SEO and content and growing traffic that way. I mean, again, you're still very early on, and we'll just sort of wrap up this segment here. But the other question that I have is, what else are you thinking about in terms of customer acquisition, new user acquisition? Are there different channels like outside of SEO and content that you want to start executing on for Driftly?
Yeah, we would like to do a referral program.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about it, and so my co-founder Jacob, he just had a baby, his first. So he's kind of like, I'm like,
Everything's on hold.
dude, don't even work on it. Yeah, and he's kind of like, he enjoys working on it, so he's like jumping in every once in a while, maybe when the baby's sleeping or something. And so we're on like this slow roll of stuff right now, but that's like an internal tool we want to build just to like test it out a little bit, referral model, see if that has legs, and then build it out a little bit more. But we also want to launch that when the product itself is we've at least like feel comfortable about our product market fit or approach thereof. I think we're like in a good approach vector right now, but like in 3 months, if we started to crank that up, I think we'd be in a better place because we'll have more features built, we'll have more feedback from users, we'll have all that set up. So referral program or affiliate program and SEO are like probably the two bigger ones. The other smaller things are the build in public, which we talked a little bit about. I do like these little like, I don't know, I call it like guerrilla marketing. Like some people don't like that term, but I just think about it as like, we like do whatever you want on Twitter. And like I search like every blog post I wrote, I like search product adoption when I wrote a product adoption thing, and I was like seeing who was talking about it, and I was interacting with those people, and if they asked more, I was like, hey, check this post out. Oh,
it's
cool.
still, I mean it definitely has value, like people, especially in the SaaS space, they follow people, right? Like they don't necessarily follow brands.
Who's going to follow my Driftly company things? A lot of our competitors, I see them like they're doing their like buffer, like scheduled tweets, all their blog posts, and no likes, no retweets. It's just like, this is so worthless. But
it's just a job that a low-level marketer is going to be doing, right?
Exactly. Like, I love Zip Message. The tool itself is great. But me as like a fellow SaaS person, like I'm like, what's Brian doing? Like, what's he building? Like, I'm invested in your journey of building Zip Message. It's almost bigger than Zip Message. It's like the entrepreneurial journey of Zip Message. Like, and that's
and I don't think that's like a It's not necessarily like a sustainable traffic or customer source. It's super helpful in like the first year to get traction, totally. But there's also still value in like hearing from the founder years later when they're a much larger established company. Like, I still follow my favorite founders who run, multi-million-dollar businesses, and that keeps me loyal or watching that brand and their products,
And everybody wants 1 million customers, right? Sure, like I'd love 1 million customers, but the reality is when you start, like how are you going to get your first 10 customers? It's going to take a little bit of like work, and that's just like the reality of it. And the easy way to get your first 10 is to just like personally do
reach out.
And those early adopters are going to like push you forward to like they're the ones who want to give you feedback. Like we've got, this guy Wilson, he does a bunch of different like little SaaS companies, but he's one of our early customers. Roberto from Catlinks, like these folks are like, we're emailing them like every other day, like talking about the product and like in chat, like give us some feedback. Like, what do you want? Oh, this thing would be cool. And it's like really helping with, not only features that we think are going to be helpful, but like little details that are going to make a big difference in terms of the experience of people. So, yeah,
I get so energized from that too. Like, I took several months off from like sending messages and talking to customers. It was just happening naturally through like customer support and stuff like that. But now I'm getting back into the rhythm of like sending Zip messages and literally hearing and seeing my customers on video. And hearing them describe how they're like, I'll get into a funk for weeks at a time if I'm not talking to customers. I'll feel like it's all not working. The whole business is going to fail. And then I hear from people and it's like, okay, now I have energy again.
You got to take those little wins as they come. I think that's actually like, I want to like highlight that because like, I like growth a lot. Like I want to see new customers join. And if I have like 3 days of no free trial started, I'm like kind of bummed. But if I'm able to like publish a great blog post that I wrote, or like we got a new link from somewhere and our like, domain authority jumped. We just went from like 0 to like 10 domain authority. Like we just figured out, and we were like having a little base camp celebration about it, Jacob and I. So like those little wins are really important to like, honestly, to keep you going and to keep you positive, because Like,
For sure.
this is the life of startups. It's up and down, it's side to side, and often you may not have more bad times than good times, but in your head you're gonna think back probably, and like your brain's gonna be like, it's gonna highlight those bad times because they're tough sometimes.
It's so true, man.
So I'm with you on that. Celebrate those wins, baby.
Too true. Well, hey Joe, let's leave it there. I mean, I feel like we covered so many rabbit holes that we could do entire episodes on it. We'll have to do that again. But yeah, this was good talking about like kind of hacking through the first few months, first year of a new SaaS with some marketing stuff.
Totally. Yeah, thank you for having me, man. If people want to, check out Driftly, it's at driftly.app, and the blog is over on the subdomain. I'm always looking for like feedback on content as well, and if you read anything, hit me up on Twitter, just at Joseph H. Howard, and feel free to follow along for the journey of Driftly, if nothing else, than just to like a tweet, and that'll be my small win of the day. I like to tweet.
I highly recommend it. We'll get all that stuff linked up in the show notes, of course. Thanks, Joe.